Now, suppose you're thinking about a plate of shrimp, and somebody says plate, or shrimp, or plate of shrimp. Better than food, man. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Better Than Food Book Reviews. I'm your host, Cliff Sargent. Great to see you as always. And if you get that reference in the beginning and you know why that's associated with Emilio Estevez, then you're awesome. If you don't, watch Repo Man with Harry Dean Stanton. You will not be disappointed. Anyways, it all pertains to the collective unconscious. Today is Carl Jung's Modern Man in Search of a Soul, which was given to me by a very kind fan of the show. Thank you very much. Carl Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist. This is a collection of his essays. According to the translator Carrie F. Baines, all of them were delivered as lectures, except for the one Freud and Jung contrasts, which outlines the differences in thinking between Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud, whom he studied with and was a friend of. The essays cover everything from dreams and dream interpretation, the conscious and the unconscious, the psyche, things related to the psyche, the importance of religious experience and meaning, spirituality, psychotherapy, analytical psychology, and much more. Like I said, Jung was a friend of Freud, whom I have not read yet, unfortunately. I would like to. I have Sexuality and the Psychology of Love on the shelf back here, given to me by another friend of mine. And I have wanted to get to it for a year. So if anybody has read that one, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. If it's a good place to start, or if you suggest I start with something else, please let me know in the comments below. So Jung was a friend of Freud, liked him very much, but had very different thoughts on everything, had very different views. Freud, from my impression, especially after reading Jung first, Freud seemed rigid. He seemed too narrow in his thinking, too dogmatic, stubborn in his convictions. Jung had doubts and seemed to question a lot more, despite being a Christian and believing in God, really believing in God and the soul and so on, yet seemed more open than Freud. I don't know if Freud was an atheist. I'd have to look that up. While Jung is a major figure in psychiatry and extremely intelligent, and the book can seem sort of intimidating because of the depth of the ideas contained therein, he is very easy to read. I found him very easy to read, very accessible, friendly even, I would say. Very open, slow going. I timed it. I could only read 8 pages approximately every 30 minutes. So you can do the math on that. That is how long it would take me to actually digest the material in this book. It's only 244 pages. It's not a long book, but it's a heavy read, but not difficult, if that makes sense. And it has this quality of being simple, not because the questions are easy, but because he makes them seem obvious due to his being a genius. It doesn't give you the answers to these massive problems. That's impossible. It just articulates them brilliantly. I heard about the book from Peterson. It was at the top of one of his reading lists. And he gave a lecture, maybe several lectures about Jung, and said that he was influenced by Friedrich Nietzsche, whom Jung mentions in this book, I believe. And Peterson said his work was in ways a response to Nietzsche's infamous declaration that God is dead. I'd still highly recommend this if you weren't a fan of Jordan Peterson. And I'll admit, I'm burnt out for now on Jung and Peterson and this realm. I think I've got it. I've had enough for now, and I'm excited to move on to other things. All the essays are attempts to help us understand ourselves through Jung imparting his wisdom on a broad range of subjects like psychology, psychiatry, psychoanalysis, which was started by Freud, and analytical psychology, which was started by Jung, sometimes called Jungian psychology. It can be confusing, at least for me, and I still do not know all of the differences between those terms. So Jung employs his lifetime of knowledge, using his experiences with clients as examples of illustrating the great psychological distress of modern man and the quest, need, and yearning for understanding and meaning and fulfillment. The great success of the book and the essays is not that they give answers. It's that they articulate the major questions that will plague us for the rest of our lives. And that's a start. That's very important to actually solidify the questions. What is the role of dreams? What is the conscious and the unconscious? What is modern man going towards? What are the things that will fulfill modern man, spiritually speaking, that will allow for the full expression of his soul, since religion doesn't fill that void any longer? The first essay concerns dreams, their meaning and interpretation, or how the unconscious, which is accessible in dreams, can allow you to determine what is driving your neurosis, right? Jung is also interested in the revelation of archetypes in dreams, or these universally recognized symbols of meaning. Jung introduces us to the realm of psychic life he calls the collective unconscious. And he explains the difference between the conscious and the unconscious. I imagine in my head the tip of the iceberg, that's the conscious. Beneath that, the whole iceberg, that's the unconscious. Jung believes the conscious mind comes from the unconscious and not the other way around. The unconscious is not just a spill-off of the conscious mind. It's this vast, I was going to say thing, but it's not really a thing, is it? The unconscious seems to be this vast ocean of non-thought that motivates and affects our lives without us being aware of it. This abstract network of hidden, discarded but important stuff that, if made conscious, could be very useful in solving conscious problems, but possibly horrifying. The great decisions of human life have, as a rule, far more to do with the instincts and other mysterious unconscious factors than with conscious will and well-meaning reasonableness. Feels a little Lovecraftian when I say it that way, and Jung was interested in the occult. The idea of us being composites, in a way, of historical mankind is terrifying. Summoned or not, the God will come. That was a saying that was, I've read, was above one of Jung's doors. And I think that's horrifying in many ways. Summoned or not, the God will come. It will come whether or not you believe in it. It will work through you. You're not master of your own fate, to a degree. And should the wrong God find you, that's very interesting. How would we know the difference, I wonder? No amount of skepticism and critical reserve has ever enabled me to regard dreams as negligible occurrences. Often enough they appear senseless, but it is obviously we who lack the sense and the ingenuity to read the enigmatical message from the nocturnal realm of the psyche. When we see that at least a half of man's life is passed in this realm, that consciousness has its roots there, and that the unconscious operates in and out of waking existence, it would seem incumbent upon medical psychology to sharpen its perceptions by a systematic study of dreams. No one doubts the importance of the conscious experience. Why then should we question the importance of unconscious happenings? Dream interpretation and so on is foggy. He describes it as being difficult to set rules or definitions or rigorously systematize. One of the essays is outlining the differences again between him and Freud, and Jung did not believe that everything could be reduced down to sexuality, as Freud did apparently. But I have not read Freud, so I feel as though I'm not educated enough to really give it an informed opinion. Later essays discuss man's historical and present need for religious experience and meaning, or the fulfillment of his soul, the expression of his soul. Jung not even believes, just is convinced of a God and a soul. He knows. I don't share that, but I'm fascinated by his conviction because he's so open. But he brings up some serious problems that we're still struggling with today in psychiatry, maybe more than ever, simply because of the amount of drugs out there being prescribed. You can't have someone go into a session, someone who has lost who has lost meaning in their lives, and write them a prescription for drugs and have everything be fixed. Someone who has lost meaning in their life is not going to be cured by chemical substances. It's just not anything that even remotely resembles a cure is going to be a numbing, not even a band-aid. It's just sort of like a delusion, like an induced lie of chemical imbalance. I mean, I don't know. At least that's what it seems like to me. You can't prescribe anything in a pill for a spiritual problem. That's something that has to be worked out on the inside, and I believe that's what Jung means. Jung says the least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest of things without it. And that was from the essay Aims of Psychotherapy. But one of the major problems seems to be communicating these things without scientific definition. You can't kick consciousness. It exists. We're experiencing it right now. It's motivating every damn thing you do. How? Why? And ultimately, by the end of all these essays, we're still sort of... He discusses the problems found in the second part or middle stage of life when all these issues typically begin to arise. He says that young people have their own struggles and so on and so forth, but when you really get to it, in his experience, crisis of meaning, spiritual crisis occurs in 35 and older. A little younger than middle age maybe, but after youth. The nearer we approach to the middle of life, and the better we have succeeded in entrenching ourselves in our personal standpoints and social positions, the more it appears as if we had discovered the right course and the right ideals and principles of behavior. For this reason, we suppose them to be eternally valid and make a virtue of unchangeably clinging to them. We wholly overlook the essential fact that the achievements which society rewards are won at the cost of a diminution of personality. Many, far too many, aspects of life which should have also been experienced lie in the lumber room among dusty memories. Sometimes even they are glowing coals under gray ashes. In another essay, he discusses archaic man and the fascinating differences in thinking due to differences in long-term focus in the environment. He has this saying that I believe someone told him, which was, magic is the science of the jungle. Archaic, or maybe tribal man, if you want to use that word, is not less intelligent in his findings, but follows a different line of thinking, tracking symbols and patterns from external events, associating things that we would not in determining how to act. Omens and events connect. We would normally call them superstitious, but they've survived using these rules, and they are paying attention to things that we are not. And they can do things that we cannot. When you think about it in a different way, it allows for a lot of empathy and a lot of, it opens so many doors of, wow, what are the spiritual systems that they have developed, and how are they using their senses differently from ours in their environments to determine what to do. This method of connecting events that we normally would think is absurd is maybe not so absurd when you look at what we are using to determine our systems, using science and so on and so forth. Things that just seem absolutely baffling to them. They just make no sense whatsoever. Simply because that's either always how it's been done, or we trust in something like science the way people hundreds of years ago trusted in God or religion, and blind trust, right? Blind trust in a system, yet we don't know why we do what we do. So Jung's idea is that old religions don't seem to do it for modern man, and neither does science alone. So some marriage of religious experience and science seems necessary to sustain man now and in the future. The essay, The Modern Spiritual Problem, discusses the psychological uncertainty in man after World War I. Every good quality has its bad side, and nothing that is good can come into the world without directly producing a corresponding evil. This is a painful fact. Now there is the danger that consciousness of the present may lead to an elation based upon illusion. The illusion, namely, that we are the culmination of the history of mankind, the fulfillment and the end product of countless centuries. If we grant this, we should understand that it is no more than the proud acknowledgement of our destitution. We are also the disappointment of the hopes and expectations of the ages. Think of nearly 2,000 years of Christian ideals followed, instead of by the return of the Messiah and the heavenly millennium, by the world war among Christian nations and its barbed wire and poison gas. What a catastrophe in heaven and on earth. It seems like man is searching for an accurate expression of his soul. The outside external form, religion, did not stand the test of reality, of war, of modernity. And you wonder, what is not going to stand the test of the internet? To think that it was actually created or significantly enhanced because of the drive to share pornography is very interesting. I just had that thought. This thing, which is now the tool which we all use, which is in all of our conscious everyday lives, what is not going to survive this new wave of technology? Where are we all going? I have no clue. No clue. None of us do. Anyways, going back then, religion didn't stand the test of reality, of war, of modernity. So now there's this focus on the inside, the inner life, psychology, the psyche. So the big important question could be something like, how does man adequately and accurately express his soul to live spiritually fulfilled now? And that answer is always going to change. Maybe the question is more complicated now than it was then. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's the same. Maybe it has never changed. I'm not even convinced that it's the right question. And I'm pretty sure the answer has changed since then, since Jung's time. Because he wrote this. He was feeling this after World War I. Then they dropped the bomb. I mean, World War II happened. The 20th century, the rest of the 20th century happened. Catastrophes that are incomprehensible. So Jung was way, way, way ahead of his time. Way ahead of his time. We are obviously still struggling with this issue. I mean, maybe forever. I enjoyed how serious he takes himself and what he's discussing, but how friendly he is. He's very pleasant to read. He's never aggressive or condescending in his arguments and statements, and there's a dreamlike quality to pieces of the book. It's a slow read as to comprehend these heavy ideas, again, but not complicated. Admirably researched and enviably communicated. Any man who can simply articulate ideas this heavy deserves our attention. Definitely. This is one to reread for the rest of your life. I plan to. It also seems like a warning. Maybe we thought we knew ourselves and what we are and why we're doing what we're doing when we really had no fucking clue. Not even close. No idea what we are. And that's how I feel after reading this. I feel like I have no idea what I am. This historical composite of however, God knows how many years, with all of these things added along the way, not even knowing how my physical structure even functions, or how to save it from itself. It's a lot to think about. Got to kind of turn that off in order to go to sleep at night, you know what I mean? Sleep is really important. I don't know a damn thing. Not even a little bit. Not a damn thing. About myself or other people. But I do know this book is better than food. So check it out. So who should read this? Anybody who would like a solid start on a spiritual midlife crisis, even if you're in your early 20s. Anyone who is interested in psychology, psychiatry, psychoanalysis, psychotherapy, obviously. Atheists who are fascinated by religious experience. Christians who are fascinated by Sigmund Freud and Friedrich Nietzsche. Those interested in neuroscience, mythology, Joseph Campbell, archetypes, neuroscience, and so on. Maybe those who are just generally struggling with life or psychic pain, working through some stuff. Again, if you're having a spiritual crisis with the meaning of your life and you spend 15 minutes with a doctor who does a bunch of short tests and then prescribes you some drugs, that's not going to solve your problem. And this is a huge issue in the West. This is a giant issue. There's going to be all sorts of repercussions from this. Could talk about the opioid crisis, and that alone is just terrifying. And there's this documentary on YouTube called Face to Face, and Jung says, "We need more psychology. We need more understanding of human nature because the only real danger that exists is man himself. He is the great danger, and we are pitifully unaware of it. We know nothing of man, far too little. His psyche should be studied because we are the origin of all coming evil." So if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go think about that for the rest of my life. then I'll die reading. You should too. Anyways, I haven't even come close to covering everything that's in this book, so please read it. It's absolutely worth your time. Better than food. Magnificent. Coffee Lottery. For those of you who are new, the Coffee Lottery is where I take all the names of the patrons who donated $5 or more per video on Patreon and place them into this mason jar, and I pull out a name for every review I do. Whoever's name I pull out, I send them a hard copy of the book I'm reviewing, plus a bag of coffee I roast myself. And it is delicious, as many fans can attest. If you would like to be entered into this, you can follow the link in the description box below, or you can go to patreon.com/booksarbetterthanfood and just donate $5 or more per video, and I really appreciate it. It helps this whole project keep going. It's all built off books and coffee. Few things in life are better. So, who wins Modern Man in Search of a Soul by Carl Jung, some delicious coffee? Dane. Thanks a bunch, Dane. Thank you everyone for watching. Really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for donating. That's all I have for you today. I'm moving to Detroit. I'm moving to Detroit, Michigan. Detroit, the D, the land of techno, and cars, and brutal winters. Can't wait. That's why there's a significant amount of space between these reviews this month, possibly next month too. It's a busy time, a lot of stuff to do. Hope you're all doing well. If you'd hit me up on Facebook and give me a like, I'd really, really sincerely appreciate that. I'm also on Twitter, Instagram. Please subscribe if you have not already. Thank you so much for watching. Again, die reading. Take care of yourselves. Have a good night. I'll talk to you soon. Ciao.